Hello everyone, Sharling here, and today I am here to tell you about my amazing No Man's Sky adventure, or, the lack of adventure. It all depends on your perspective, I suppose. Now, before we continue, I do apologize if the video quality is not up to the usual quality on the channel, but this footage is taken from last night's stream. So being a stream, obviously the bitrate isn't as high as the normal content that I upload to the channel. But anyway, moving on. So unless you've been living under a rock for the past 5 years, you've probably heard of No Man's Sky, the game that's been hyped to high heaven. It was recently released on PS4, followed by some kind of average reviews. But I thought to myself, it may still be worth covering the PC version of the game on the channel, despite the negative things that I've read and the negative things that I've heard. So I decided to take the plunge last night and purchase the Steam version before its PC release. So anyway, eventually I downloaded the game, I set up everything for streaming, and with everything ready to go, I loaded up the game. So I was welcomed by the intro screen with some frame rate hitching, but it's probably just loading, right? So obviously that's nothing to worry about. I was then greeted with press and hold E to initiate. Okay. The game loaded up, the camera panned around, stuttering every now and again. Again, I thought it was just loading or whatever, and eventually I got control. And the first thing I thought to myself was, this feels kind of slow. So I headed into the options menu to discover that the game frame rate was by default capped at 30 frames a second. Where have I seen this before? But anyway, that wasn't serious. I figured, well, it just needs to be changed. So I tried to change it along with some of the other graphical settings in the game, but for some reason noticed that none of the options would change. Until I realized that you can't just click on the options to change them, you have to press and hold the left mouse button in order to change any of these options. Who thought this was a good idea for PC again? Anyway, after changing some of these options, the game required a restart, so I restarted the game. Again, I changed the setting of my frame rate to max. There were a few increments, 60, 90, 110 I believe, and maximum. I figured that should sort out some of these strange hiccups that were present in the game. Unfortunately not. Stutters, hiccups, and horrid frame rate dips persisted throughout my 1.5 hour stream, and I will have to add the reason I ended it was because of the horrid frame rate in the game. Now, turning the frame rate cap down to 60 seemed to help for a brief moment, but the issues continued. But that was when I was on foot. Once I got into the spacecraft and tried to fly around the surface of the planet, things got considerably worse. As you can see in the footage being played at the moment, the frame rate started dipping into the low 20s and in some cases paused completely, so it became more like a slideshow. Anyway, for those of you who are not subscribers or have not watched any of my videos on my PC upgrade, so before you say potato PC, I'm running an i7 6700K with 32GB of DDR4, 2400, an SSD, and a GTX 1070. So there are clearly some issues with the PC version of this game, and judging by the Steam reviews and a lot of the commentary on the Reddit, I don't seem to be the only person having these kinds of issues. Now, this was the first gripe that I had with the PC version of the game. It really is a crap port. Really, really bad. I don't even think I can begin to describe how inconsistent the performance was, and I don't think this video can convey how unsmooth the entire experience felt. The other thing I do want to say that there is an FOV slider in the game, but for some reason, even when setting it to 100, it still felt like 60. And upon doing some further research in the forums, I see that people are manually editing the FOV to change it to things like 120 and 135, which seems to rectify the issue. So whether it's because the in-game FOV display is not the number that it suggests, or whether it's calculating vertical as opposed to horizontal, I don't know. But either way, setting it to 100 still feels like 60. Now, just getting back to the PC performance just for a second. PC games are a complicated beast. I know that everyone has different operating systems. People have different PC configurations and whatnot. Different people are going to have different experiences. So the experience that I've had so far with No Man's Sky is not necessarily the experience that everyone is going to have, but there are a large number of people having these performance issues, and there are also a large amount of people who are unable to play the game at all. So that is something that you guys do need to consider if you are thinking about picking up this particular version of No Man's Sky. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about was the fact that in order to perform any kind of action in the game, you are required to hold down the left mouse button, or whatever button it is that you want to use to perform an action. And I mean everything. You want to pick something up? Hold the button. You want to select something in your inventory to sell? You have to hold the button. You want to transfer stuff to your ship? You have to hold the button. You want to top up your life support? Hold down the button. Want to mine? Hold down the button. Hold down the button. Hold down the button. So who would have thought that the instruction to hold E to initiate the very first screen of the game was a clear sign of things to come? Now seriously, who thought this was a good idea? Perhaps they shouldn't be doing UI design for PC. And continuing, in my brief time with the game, there were a few other things that struck me as methods to waste your time. Flying towards space stations, for example. 1 minute 30 seconds remain. Engaging your booster, drive and wait. You can't look around, you can't do anything at all, you can only wait. Now, I didn't check to see if it was possible to open my inventory. I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps some of you know that. You can let me know in the comment section below. But it just seems like really it's going to just sit for 1 minute 30 seconds. And there's nothing interesting I can do. I can't look around at the space around me or anything like that. I just have to sit and watch myself fly to the planet for 1.5 minutes. Perhaps it's to cover up for some kind of a loading screen. But upon arriving at the space station, the frame rate hitched. So I start to doubt that that is the case. And the other thing was clicking on NPCs at the space station. You guessed it, of course, you have to hold E to talk to them, obviously, after which you have to wait 10 seconds before you are actually presented with a choice of options. And I'll say that again, 10 seconds from the moment you've held down E to the moment where you can actually select one of the choices in the dialogue. There's no way to skip it, at least not that I could see. And I really don't see why they would force people to wait that amount of time to talk to an NPC. You know, maybe for the first time you see it, it's interesting. But from then on, it would be nice to be able to skip that whole process. You know, save yourself 10 seconds every time. And in a game that's going to require you to do things like flying to space stations, clicking and mining every damn thing that you come across, and talking to countless NPCs, I would have thought that they could at least not waste your time with menial arbitrary stuff like making you wait longer for things that you really don't need to wait longer for. Now, the other thing is flying your ship along the surface of the planet sounds great on paper, beside the frame rate issues that I mentioned earlier, but you do not have full control. And the game won't let you go below a certain altitude, so if you try to go too low, it's just going to push you back up. The other thing is some really weird mouse issues. I think Total Biscuit demonstrated this in his video as well. It's very, very odd indeed. So there do obviously need to be some fixes with regard to the controls as well. It's also impossible to crash on a planet. And everything is automated. So when you land on the planet or when you land on a space station, it's all automated. And that's a bit of a pity because in a game like Elite, for example, now of course I'm not expecting that No Man's Sky to be a simulation, but there is something inherently rewarding about landing your ship manually on a space station, landing your ship manually on a planet, and being able to fly around freely. So it's very disappointing. Again, not that I expected No Man's Sky to be any kind of serious simulation or anything like that, but at least give me some control. This is an exploration game. I would have thought that that would be the first thing players should have the freedom to do, to explore freely. Now, I know I only played the game for 1 hour and 30 minutes, but let me just say that the bad port put me on edge from the get-go, and perhaps, you know, some of these annoyances would have been more bearable if the game actually ran well. So, to cut a long story short, I refunded the game. This kind of shoddy port is absolutely unacceptable in my opinion, regardless of the price, whether it is a $60 game, whether it is a $30 indie game. And it doesn't help that No Man's Sky is trying to peddle itself off as a $60 game. It is possible that they may fix these issues because, you know, this is probably not doing their reputation any good or doing their sales any good based off of the number of negative Steam reviews that are currently popping up. But as it stands for now, I would recommend you guys to stay clear of the PC version of No Man's Sky until they have fixed these issues. So maybe keep up on the forums, check out the Reddit. But at the moment, it seems to be very much an Arkham Knight issue, unfortunately. As I said before, just need to look at the Steam reviews to get an idea of how people feel about the PC version of No Man's Sky. But that's been my experience with the game so far. I'm glad I got it refunded. I can always pick it up later and cover it on the channel if they manage to eventually fix these issues. But anyway, guys, don't support this kind of release. I think just stay away from it for now. I hope this video is going to save some of you $60. And yeah, for me, well, I guess it's back to playing something else. Such a pity. I've been Xiaoling. Until next time.